Hello and welcome to this very special edition of Wilderness Days. What you are about to see is something which has never been documented before. In that sense, it's a completely new find in the world of wildlife. The story concerns two orphan tiger cubs and their long struggle to stay on to dear life. But we will not spill the beans at this stage. So let's start from the beginning.
Ranthambore National Park in the January of 2011. It was like any other month in this park, which is famous for its camera-friendly tigers. They seemed to be everywhere. Muchly, the queen of Ranthambore, could be found ambling on her fixed route. Her daughter, T17, the last remaining radio-collared tiger at that time, was happy cat-walking on the banks of Rajbagh Lake. But the big draw was a healthy tigress named T5 and her two young cubs. In the next 1 month, their world was about to shatter. But of course, they had no realization of it then. Every day, hundreds of tourists would enter the park with one fervent desire: to somehow spot the happy family of T5. But even they had no inkling of the tragedy which was about to engulf these three tigers, and how it would trigger a series of events which would force the biggest of wildlife experts to question their knowledge of the secret world of tigers. Came February, and it became apparent that all was not well with T5. She walked with a slight limp, indicating that she was in some sort of pain. Her plight was first spotted by Rajasthan's Environment Minister Beena Kak, who is also a keen wildlife enthusiast herself. The Forest Department was quick to tranquilize and perform a surgery on the tigress. For the next few days, it was assumed that T5 was on the path of recovery. But alas, it turned out to be wishful thinking. Balendu Singh, the honorary wildlife warden of Ranthambore, has been tracking the developments from day one. He remembers that fateful day.
T5, the tigress of Kachida area, she was christened T5 by the Forest Department, was the second-time mother when she gave birth to her cubs towards the latter part of 2010. The cubs were first really seen in January of 2011. I first observed her with two small cubs, which we estimate were about 3 to 4 months old. And she was in a waterhole near Kachida area, and the two little bundles of fur with her. That's the first time.
That was the first time you realized that she had become mother once again?
We knew that she had given cubs, but it's the first time I had physically seen her with the cubs.
Must be a very happy sight.
It was absolutely, we were all enthralled, we were happy. Some people had seen the cubs and photographed, tourists had photographed. Then a few days later, our Minister of Tourism at that time, Mrs. Beena Kak, she came here and saw the cubs and the mother, and she photographed them. And while she was photographing them, she realized that all was not well with our Kachida tigress T5. And she brought her photographs back. We got the forest department people, and along with experts and veterinary doctors, they realized that she had some problem which needed urgent attention because she was a nursing mother. So treatment was given, which was successful. Unfortunately for all of us, she did not last for too long. 10 or 12 days after the treatment was given, she seemed to recover. But then we realized that she went weak and she died just about 50 meters from the chowki of Kachida. All night long she was roaring and moaning, almost as if telling us that she's going.
T5's abrupt death stunned the park officials. Not to mention tens of thousands of tourists who by that time had grown particularly fond of this happy family of three. But now, a bigger and a much more serious problem was at hand. The two unattended cubs of the dead tigress. This was a period of stress and anxiety for everybody in Ranthambore. A team of 50+ forest guards combed the area where T5 had died, but failed to locate the cubs. In any forest, a motherless tiger cub is the most vulnerable creature. With no means of support, it still doesn't know how to hunt for food and can starve to death. But this situation rarely arises, because even before it dies of hunger, it falls prey to a host of dangers which lurk around it. And Ranthambore is full of such dangers. The next few days were harrowing for the forest department. Repeated searches of the area showed no sign of the cubs. No bug marks, no sightings, not a slightest evidence that they were even alive. Ranthambore's field director Rajesh Gupta recalls how tough the situation was in the beginning.
It was a very big challenge to the department and the management how to save the cubs without a mother, which are just 3 to 4 months old. So,
What were your thoughts then at that point when you found the cubs to be orphaned?
That time the management decided first to track the cubs, which was most important, because survival in the wild of such a young cub, just 3 to 4 months old, is very, very difficult. So the first challenge was to search the cubs, and video cameras were laid at the spots where the mother used to stay with the cubs.
And then suddenly, 4 days after T5's death, the officials spotted the two cubs. They were hiding in a crevice near Kachida Forest Chowki. Some 400 meters away from the spot where their mother breathed her last.
Surprisingly, after a lot of efforts, we got some video clippings showing the cubs surviving. So it was a moment of rejoice to the whole department.
But I believe the natural tendency at that time, or the decision at that time, would have been to somehow capture the cubs and put them in a zoo so that they are safe from predators in the forest.
Yeah, that was also a thing creeping in the minds of the management officers who were posted that time.
Right.
So, but since the cubs were very difficult to be caught in a cage in a wild area, so attempts were made but not much success.
Okay.
So the management decided to give them artificial feed.
The cubs were still in a state of shock. And bolted into a cave the moment they spotted the forest guards. Now, it was crucial to capture the cubs at any cost for their own safety. Traps such as these were placed at several places around Kachida Post. And the area was made out of bounds for tourists. But the cubs turned out to be smarter than the officials. And these here are the first visuals of the cubs which you are seeing now. Thanks to the camera traps and video cameras installed in the area by the Ranthambore Forest Department, the cubs' day-to-day activities no longer remained a mystery. The images also threw light on the cubs' personalities. While one of them is outgoing, impulsive, and gives in to its curiosity, the other is content to take a backseat. From April to October 2011, the Forest Department's cameras captured all the major changes in the cubs' lives. They were growing up rapidly and learning new tricks. The Forest Department's visuals also throw light on two special traits of the tiger. Curiosity and swiftness. While one of the cubs is curious about the trap, the other one bolts the moment it comes down on his sister. And one fine day, after about a month, they made their first kill. This was certainly a momentous event in their young lives, but they still did not know how to bag a wild animal. This training could be given to them only by their mother. But she was no longer available. So, are they doomed for a life in the zoo? Nobody had any answer to this. Yogesh Sahu, Ranthambhore's divisional forest officer, is obsessed with the safety of the cubs. He is a silent operator. Each morning, through detailed analysis of the data which his staff prepares, Sahu tries to predict the next move of the cubs.
At that time, what were the potential dangers to these cubs?
They were, you see, the cubs were so small and without any protection. Usually, it's the mother who protects the cubs against all sorts of predators.
Yes, against other tigers.
All other dangers in the wild. And otherwise also tiger cubs, they are very much disciplined cubs. When the mother goes out hunting, she signals them to stay put at a place. And they never move away. They just stay put at that place. So without the mother to guide them, it was a difficult life for them.
Then everybody at that point must have thought that the chances of this cub survival on their own would be extremely slim.
Yes. That was the belief.
That was the belief.
That the only way these cubs could survive was to capture them and take them to some safe place in an enclosure where they can be watched and taken care of.
But suddenly, a miracle happened. To everybody's amazement, the cubs found a savior. It was as if Mother Nature decided to intervene directly on behalf of the orphaned tiger cubs. Nothing of this sort has ever happened before in any other forest of India.
I'm sure that by now, even the most venerable wildlife experts would be shaking their heads in disbelief. But then, truth can be stranger than the fiction. Let's now see who this mysterious male tiger is and will he really protect the cubs?
This here is the first revelation of the miracle which blessed the orphaned cubs. This here is a photograph which shook the animal experts. Captured by the Forest Department's camera on the night of May 14, 2011, one of the cubs is seen with another tiger. Pray, who is this tiger? And is not the cub in mortal danger of being killed by this unknown tiger? Like wildfire, the news spread around that the cubs had found a protector. And the protector was a huge male tiger. Soon, this male tiger was identified. It was no other than T25, presumed to be the father of the cubs. Sensing that the cubs were bereft of their mother and their lives were in imminent danger, the tiger dad decided to take matters in its own powerful paws. A male tiger taking care of the cubs? Surely this has never happened before. It was always assumed that a male tiger's role is limited to impregnating a tigress and then leaving her to take care of the cubs. But T25 proved everyone wrong.
You would, of course, like to know what happens next. Welcome to Wilderness Days. In the last episode, you saw how two orphan tiger cubs in Rajasthan's Ranthambore National Park are being protected and reared by a male tiger. This happened after the cub's mother T5 died and the male T25 stepped in to protect the cubs. This sort of phenomenon has never been seen or recorded before. Let's now continue with this amazing but true story.
It is now fairly easy in Ranthambore to spot T25 with the two cubs. Looking at them, nobody can guess they are the same cubs who were presumably doomed for an untimely death in the February of 2011. The odds against their survival were simply too huge. And the visuals obtained by the Ranthambore Forest Department through their camera traps showed the cubs must have escaped near certain death several times by the skin of their teeth. First, when a pair of leopards came too near the cubs. For the next 4 days, the cubs were not seen at all. This is when panic set in amongst the forest staff. Have they fallen prey to the leopard? Fortunately, and to everybody's relief, the tiger cubs reappeared on the 5th day. Similarly, on another occasion, the cameras captured the presence of a hyena, another potential cub killer. But once again, the cubs emerged unscathed.
In wild area, even adult dominant males keep fighting. There are territorial fights. The transients, which are of 3 to 4 years, they are pushed out by the dominant male. So this is a part of the population and the dynamics of tiger behavior in a wild area. But we only hope that all the efforts yield some good results. Till now it is happening, and it is happening pretty good. But anything predicting the behavior in future will be too early.
The male tiger's arrival on the scene, however, changed everything in one stroke. T25, who is presumed to be the cub's father, now takes full responsibility of the two. One of the cubs is more attached to the male tiger, and often the two can be seen patrolling the dirt tracks of Ranthambore with not a care in the world. Interestingly, the cubs not only accompany T25 in his jungle patrols, but also watch his actions intently. Some actions are crucial to a tiger's survival, such as scent marking at regular intervals to declare its territory. T25 is a doting father, there is no doubt about that. And at times, when a cub becomes restive, like any other child, his gentle pat calms the little one.
Initially, we were really scared that how to save those cubs from other wild animals as well as other tigers. The local staff nursed them in the beginning, and in one of the photo traps, it was noticed that a male tiger, T25, was seen in the area in which these two cubs were living. Still, vigil was kept, and later on it was found that T5 is taking care of those cubs rather than doing any harm to them.
In a forest, every day is a new day. On one such day, the cubs realized that their lives are still at the tender mercies of chance.
Despite the fact that T25 is a very powerful and dominant male, the cubs' lives often hung by a thread. Now, in a forest, death can strike suddenly. And one fine day, one of the cubs went through a shocking experience.
This was the day when one of the cubs, though now grown up to a young adult, had its first brush with death. The whole thing happened rather suddenly, the way they do in a forest. T17, a young tigress, was near a waterhole when she spotted the cub some 300 yards away. A tiger normally does not tolerate the presence of another big cat in its territory, and T17 is no different. Crouching to the ground, she eyes the cub intently. It's clear she doesn't like what she sees. Slowly, she begins to prepare for a charge. Interestingly, the cub still doesn't have any inkling of the danger to its young life. Its game would have been over in a flash, but once again, Lady Luck smiled on the young tiger. As T17 prepares for the assault, she stops. She cannot believe her eyes. A male tiger suddenly emerges in the grassland and is walking menacingly towards her. Within a matter of seconds, T17 has gone through 3 emotions: aggression, confusion, and now submission. She realizes she is no match for a much bigger and powerful T25, but nevertheless holds her ground. The waving of her upturned tail is a signal that she doesn't want a confrontation with T25 over the cub. But surprisingly, T25 has no intention to harm the tigress either. He merely wants T17 to stay away from the cubs. Now, what kind of communication is taking place between the 2 grown-up tigers is anybody's guess. But something is definitely conveyed to T17, and though she doesn't like it, she decides to stay away from the cub. T25 also doesn't press the issue. Turning away from T17, he calmly walks back to the cub. Even for those who claim to be experts on tigers, this encounter should be an eye-opener. We are not. So let's rewind the scene to guess what could have been taking place between T17 and T25.
He comes nose to nose with Sundari and warns her not to come any closer. They vocalize, he goes back to where the cub is. And Sundari, you can see her in the film. I mean, she's absolutely, she doesn't know which way to turn. So definitely he is protecting the cubs.
This sort of behavior clearly sends us a signal that T25 male is trying to save the species and save these 2 cubs, and yes, it is giving good protection to the cubs, and they are doing right now quite fine. Of course, since they are surviving with the mother, though there will be definitely be a lag period when they really become completely independent.
At this point, it will be relevant to compare T25's parenting skills with that of a normal tigress in Ranthambore. Here is T19 with her cubs in the Lapur area of the park. On a hot afternoon, we spotted them resting in a hollow cave. The young tigress is obviously enjoying her motherhood, and like her cubs are too at ease. If there is a happy and carefree tiger family, this is the one, T19 and her cubs. At around the same time, but in a different patch of the park, is T25 with his two daughters. Like T19, T25's love for the cubs is completely unconditional. One really cannot spot a difference between the two families, but they are different. One wonders how far T25 would go in ensuring the safety of the two cubs. The fact is, the young tigers are still not completely out of harm's way. There is no telling what new twist fate has in store for them. Interestingly, both the orphaned cubs are females, and Sahu strongly feels that saving their lives is important for the national park itself.
In the jungle, every day is a new day. And since we are talking about tiger's behavior, and we don't really know a tiger's behavior in its entirety, is it safe to assume that T25 will continue to remain protective towards the cubs? Or maybe one day he might change his mind for whatever reason.
You see, you are very right. The forest is always unpredictable. We cannot say what will happen the next moment. And that is why, we were always worried. And because you can't say for certain about the behavior, what will unfold in future, we don't know. Because we could not predict this also. We never knew this would happen, but it happened, it was new thing. So the future, what is there, we don't know. But my guess is that this will continue. The way the association is keeping on, this would continue, and I hope that finally these cubs, they reach the age where they become adults and find their own territories. And since these are both females, they are very precious to us. Our park needs more females because our male tiger population is a bit on the higher side. So we need more tigresses. So from that angle, both these females are very precious for us.
The Forest Department of Ranthambore is keeping no stone unturned to ensure the safety of T5's daughters. A team of dedicated forest guards operates 24/7 from the Kachida post of the park. A daily record is maintained on the movements of T25 and the two cubs. Moti Ram heads the team and has been following the cubs ever since their mother died.
मोतीराम जी कुछ बताएंगे इन T5 के बच्चों के बारे में, कब से आप इनको देख रहे हैं?
छोटे से ही देख रहा हूँ, माँ के साथ में देखे पहले। माँ गुजर गई इनकी, उसके बाद में फिर अकेले ही रह गए। फिर थोड़े दिन बाद में T25 इनके साथ रहा, अब भी साथ में ही है।
अच्छा, किस तरह से वो उनकी रक्षा करता है इन बच्चों की, कैसे?
अपने साथ में ही रखता है और हम देते हैं खाना तो वो उसको खा लेते हैं, नहीं वो खुद खिलाता है। बच्चे दोनों साथ में ही रहते हैं, कभी अकेले भी रहते हैं, एक को छोड़ देता है, एक उसके साथ में रहता है। माँ की तरह ही रखता है, जैसे माँ प्यार करती है ऐसे ही प्यार करता है।
तो इनके लिए खाना भी लेके आता है?
हाँ, खाना भी, और रोरिंग करता हुआ आता है। थोड़े दूर इधर उधर हो जाते हैं तो रोरिंग करता हुआ, आवाज़ देता हुआ और उनको अपने पास में ही बुला लेता है।
आज की तारीख में ये जो बच्चे हैं,
हाँ सर,
ये अपना शिकार करना खुद सीख गए हैं?
हाँ, खुद कर लीजिए, अब खुद करते हैं।
और इसमें जो बड़े आपके जो अधिकारी हैं वो भी रिपोर्ट लेते हैं?
हाँ, वे भी लेते रहते हैं कि कहाँ है, क्या मूवमेंट है, कहाँ रहा, कहाँ मिला, पगमार बनाए या आँखों से देखे।
It's a tough life Moti Ram is living at the Kachida post. He begins his day by drawing water from this well. Moving away from the cubs is a luxury he cannot afford. Moti Ram has not visited his family for the last many months, but that really doesn't bother him much. He has to keep an eye on this very special family of three, and his work is not yet over.
We now come to the end of this episode. We hope you have been entertained and stimulated by this true story.